You have queued up the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation recorded at the New York City Concert Hall, Roulette. You can hear thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's past and present and find news of upcoming events celebrating innovation and imagination at roulette.org. Aren't you curious?
Welcome to another edition of the Roulette Tapes. I'm Susan James. Today we feature composer and mallet percussionist Patricia Brennan, who will lead us through highlights of her history as a musician and the concerts she presented as part of her residency at Roulette. We'll hear excerpts of her duet performances with Sylvie Courvoisier and Adamo Farrell, as well as the Patricia Brennan Septet and her ensemble, More Touch. Here's Patricia Brennan.
I am Patricia Brennan. I'm a Vibraphonist, marimbist, composer, educator, based in Brooklyn and originally from Veracruz, Mexico. So I come from a culture where music education starts really, really early on. So I actually started studying music formally since I was 3 years old. I entered the conservatory in my hometown, which is a very common way of getting into music education in Mexico. The way it works is paired basically with the grades in school. So there's like a kindergarten level, elementary school, and so on, all the way until you get to college. So I started with piano lessons, and then eventually you have to choose a second instrument, which I chose percussion, and it's very disciplined and demanding, even at an early age. Like you have juries, you have to take solfege, choir, harmony classes, and as the older you get, it gets more complex. Also, the town that I'm from, there's a very rich culture and traditional music that's influenced by other cultures as well, because it's a port of entry in Mexico. So there's a lot of Afro-Cuban music. There's a traditional music called son jarocho, which is especially from this area in Mexico, from the port of Veracruz. There's a marimba culture, so my appreciation of mallet percussion started also really early on. My parents are not musicians, but they are avid fans of all kinds of music, so it was always around. My grandmother was a concert pianist. She lived next door, came over to practice, so it was always around me since I was really young. I guess going fast forward to this, I became an orchestral percussionist first. So before moving to the States, I had an orchestra job in one of the top orchestras in Mexico. My position was fifth percussionist, assistant timpanist. So the reason why I bring that up is because for those people that know what that means, it means that you don't really play a lot, unless there's orchestral works more modern, that have the mallets part. So usually I will be in charge of playing the xylophone part, glockenspiel, or what we call the toys, like the small percussion, like triangle, tambourine. Maybe there's a gong part, or anything like that. that that is extra. So a lot of the times, especially, you know, the people that organize the season, the orchestra season, they mostly play more traditional repertoire, like classical or maybe romantic period, you know. At most, Prokofiev would be the most contemporary thing that they do, you know. So as a fifth percussionist, you don't have a lot to do. So having that job kind of basically changed everything for me as to what that meant, and I really started to question what it was to be a musician, because I was just sitting there counting measures, and I started to kind of not feel like I was making music, even though, you know, you are part of a team and you are making music. And I always wanted to write my own music. I wanted to improvise. I wanted to play in a band, you know, actively, you know, not counting measures. So I had an opportunity to come to the States. I got asked to come to this school in Philadelphia called Curtis Institute of Music, and you know, it's another orchestral school, but it was my ticket out of Mexico, and it was completely, you know, a full ride, and they give you, you know, financial assistance and everything. So it was a complete, you know, like no-brainer for me to make the move. So once I was in Philly, that's where things started to change, because when I moved to Philly, I already knew I didn't want to play in an orchestra anymore, but I wanted to, you know, explore more the soloist path. And I wasn't really thinking of jazz yet or anything like that. I just knew I wanted to write my music. I wanted to improvise. And at the time, it was actually influenced by a very known marimbist, marimba player called Keiko Abe. It's a Japanese marimbist, that, you know, it's because of her that the marimba is a concert instrument now, and people can be soloists with orchestras and then have solo recitals on marimba. She really was one of the pioneers of doing this and playing 4, 6, 8 mallets even on the instrument. One of the things that made her special, in addition to what I just mentioned, she writes her own music. She improvises in that language that she kind of created, and that's basically most of the material that drives her career. So I wanted to, at the time, follow her footsteps. So once in Philly, I was like, well, how do I study improvisation? So coincidentally, a jazz vibraphonist was coming to the school to give lessons, and I figured, well, this guy, you know, improvises, he writes his own music too, I'm gonna take lessons with him. So that's kind of where the improvisational music journey began in a more formal level. I mean, back in Mexico, I used to play in Afro-Cuban bands. I used to play in some jarocho bands and marimba bands, and there is improvisation in that music as well. You know, I wrote some things in the conservatory, like I had to write for strings in composition class or things like that. But it was never at this point where, like, okay, now I really want to channel my voice or what I'm really, you know, envisioning, until I started those studies in Philly. You know, that's kind of what started to steer me more and more into, I guess, the world that I belong now, the kind of creative music, avant-garde, you know, improvisational music world. Obviously, starting with a jazz vibraphonist, you know, I started to study other vibraphone players, you know, like Mel Jackson. Particularly Bobby Hutcherson was a huge one that I was really focused on. He led me to other musicians that really had a huge impact, and I guess what I perceive now, the way I write currently, and or how it developed from this point, which was people like Eric Dolphy or Jackie McLean or Gretchen Moncourt. So it was because of Bobby that I ended up discovering some of these musicians, and later on Jerry Allen, and so on. My quartet More Touch. That was a really special project. The members of that project are Kim Cass on bass, Marcus Gilmore on drums, and on percussion, Mauricio Herrera. The inspiration behind this project, it was in a sense recreating what is a percussion ensemble, but with a more improvisational music instrumentation. So in a sense, it's kind of a vice trio with a percussionist, but we're all percussionists, including Kim, the bass player. There was a reason why I asked Kim to do this project, because even though he plays bass, he thinks like a drummer. So I wanted actually 4 drummers in this band. And the music is designed with this in mind as well. It's very rhythmic, it's complex in some ways. Also, it reflects some of the influences of my musical background. There's Afro-Cuban influences in the music, but there's also contemporary or new music elements from my past as a classical percussionist. And so this performance, it was part of the Vision Festival, which I always love to be, part of that festival. It's always such a joy. And we played repertoire from our record, also called More Touch. After More Touch, my next record was called Break and Stretch, and it's a septet. And this one includes a rhythm section from More Touch, but I wanted to continue to experiment with this palette and expand it and add horns to it. So therefore, the 3 horns came into the existence in this combination. So this project, 7, or now called Patricia Brennan Septet, Break and Stretch, the inspiration behind this is another part of my musical life, which is the music that I grew up listening to, which is Cuban son, salsa bands, rock bands with brass bands, and that's, thanks to my parents, like Fania All Stars, Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, those kind of like really big sounding ensembles. But, if you really looked at it, like they sounded like big bands, but it was only sometimes 3 horns, maybe 4 horns. It wasn't really like 19 horn players, but the sound was so huge out of those ensembles. So that was really the inspiration behind this band, where I have 3 horn players, but I wanted to make the whole ensemble sound like a huge jazz orchestra or big band. So actually the performance at Roulette in April, this was part of my residency at Roulette, and I wanted to do that actually because we had just recorded the record in the fall, and we hadn't really performed the music yet. after the record. So for the record we rehearsed, we recorded, but we never really had like a live performance of this music. So I felt that Roulette, the space would be perfect for this band, for this music, and just the residency was the perfect space for me to showcase this ensemble and to share the music that hasn't been out yet. The record hadn't been out or anything, so it really was a true, I guess, live performance premiere of this music. The members of the band that did that performance is almost all of the same members in the record, except for the drummer. On the rhythm section, we have, again, just like more touch, Kim Cass on bass. We have Mauricio Herrera, which is the main members, but Marcus wasn't in this performance, and I had drummer Dan Weiss play instead. And then the horn players is Adam O'Farrell, who's not only playing trumpet, but he's also doing electronics in some of the music in this performance and this record. Gianni Rabagon playing alto saxophone and sopranino saxophone. And then on tenor saxophone, Mark Shim covering those parts as well. Also that same day, I opened the first half of the show was my duo with Adam O'Farrell, who's also in the Septet. I think we met in 2013. He was really young. I think he was just starting his undergrad and already super talented. He could do anything. Anything that I could write for him, he would be able to do. He was working on one of his projects, and he came over to my place, and we were just trying some of the music as duo, and we were like, actually this works really well. So we just decided to continue to play together as duo since then. I can't really remember exactly when we started, but by the time we did that show at Roulette, we had already built some repertoire, and I thought that would be a great, I guess, preview to the Septet, since he's also part of the bigger band, just to kind of, complement the night with that performance. Another concert that I did as part of my residency at Roulette was a duo with pianist Sylvie Courvoisier. This was the first concert, and actually when I was approached to do this residency, I really was trying to think, okay, I want to take advantage of this to do something new, or something that I really wanted to do, but I didn't really have the opportunity for, the space or just the support to be able to do projects like this. So Sylvie is one of those musicians that I've listened to her since I was in college in Philly. And I remember it was her first solo record, Songs and Epigrams, that really, it was one of those records that was hugely influential for me. I remember thinking, like, how does she do that on the piano? How does she get those sounds? And then being inspired to try to do the same with my own instrument. So once I got to meet her in New York, I just knew that I wanted to do something with her. So when this residency came about, I was like, well, this is a great opportunity to do a duo. And this is, so several reasons. One, I wanted to play with Sylvie, but the other one too is the legacy of vibraphone and piano duets. Even though there is a legacy, we know, with Gary Burton and Chick Corea, or Gary Burton and Paul Bley, there's Sun Ra and Walt Dickerson, there's like this kind of, I guess, trajectory of this instrumentation. I wanted to kind of continue on that and try to contribute something to it that hasn't really been done before. The performance at Roulette was a premiere, not only of the project, but also of all the music that was written for that project. So the majority of the music is mine, but Sylvie contributed with 2 compositions as well for that performance. And yeah, I mean, that was super exciting. It's also, we planned some things, we're gonna play these compositions, but then the way the concert ended up turning out, which we made this really, interesting transitions from one piece to the other. So it was this very spontaneous way of performing the material that, in a sense, it makes sense with somebody like Sylvie, where she's a true improviser, and she's able to set up those moments very easily, or vice versa. If I try to go that direction, she immediately can detect that that's what what is happening, and then we can really have fun and be in the moment. So we continue to play. Actually, I was just in Europe last week with that duo. We did our first European tour with that project, and we just recorded a record that will be released next year. So that all started with that one concert at Roulette. Up to Near and Far is my latest record. It's coming out in October 24. So this one, again, is an extension of my musical past, my musical journey, my musical mind. And because I've kind of explored so many aspects, like I was an orchestral musician, new music, had a percussion quartet, more traditional jazz, etc., Afro-Cuban music, etc. This one was more on my classical percussion background and new music. So that really dictated the instrumentation of the ensemble, which is quite of it's a softer palette than what I did before. So now this record is also special because it is directly connected to one of my other passions, which is astronomy. This started a long time ago. My parents are both engineers, and they're always been really into all this exact sciences type of things, and they were also really into just astronomy in general. But then eventually I was able to buy my telescope and get my whole gear, and I always wonder what would happen if I were to translate the symmetry and the geometry that you see in the sky into sound. Like, would it be also symmetrical and balanced, just like I see it in the sky? So I devised this whole system where I translated the shape of a constellation into musical pitches and also rhythmic content by overimposing it over a circle of fifths, and also using the area that the constellation takes in the sky to get basically just numbers, and the numbers are translated into music, into rhythm. So that was the beginning or the seed of this project. Then the compositions use elements from these diagrams that I have, and I also wrote 2 graphic scores for this project. So it's quite different than everything that I done before, but it's and actually all started because of that, in a sense, an experiment of to see if the symmetry and the balance translated, and actually it did. I was shocked to see that sometimes some of the pitches that I was getting from these constellations were sometimes even a very tonal major triad with a major 7 or something like that. I mean, not all of them are like that, but to see that relationship of symmetry was really cool when I started to do this translation. The performance at the Roulette is going to be our CD release show, so I'm really excited for that. And actually, it's the full band that recorded the record, which for 11 people, I was really shocked that I was able to get everybody on that performance. But I'm really excited for that, and we haven't performed the music since we recorded it, so kind of similar to the concert of Breaking Stretch of the Septet. There's that excitement behind us because I can't wait to play this music live again.
Thank you.
Patricia Brennan has been our guest for this edition of the Roulette Tapes. She will present her latest work, Of the Near and Far, on December 1st at Roulette. And the concert will be available in our archives, along with all of the works you heard in this program at roulette.org/archive. The Roulette Tapes is a part of the Roulette Concert Archives, a project made possible in part with support from the Destina Foundation and the generous contributions of our members. David Weinstein is Roulette's Director of Special Projects and Senior Producer of the Roulette Tapes. I'm Susan James. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation. This series is produced by Roulette Intermedium. You can find thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's archives and news of upcoming events at roulette.org.